Hello, welcome to Wargamer. I'm your host, Rob. Today's video, we're going to be looking at the reveals from Warhammer Fest, specifically related to Age of Sigmar. Now, it's been a very exciting weekend. If you're an Age of Sigmar fan, I'm joined by the Twitch chat, and we're going to talk about the reveals and what it means for Age of Sigmar. We're not going to spend too long on it. We've just had a big chat on Twitch about our feelings and thoughts on all the releases. So this video is just really going to be a quick update to let you know what's going on so you're not overwhelmed and you're not sure what's happening. Let's jump straight in. The first bit is that Games Workshop have revealed a roadmap. There it is, and that's super exciting for all of us. They've shown the Seraphon book is out, we know that already, and we know that we're going to get the General's Handbook sometime around July, and then we get a series of narrative books as part of a narrative campaign called the Dawnbringers. Then we also get a Cities of Sigmar book in the autumn, along with 2 more Dawnbringer books, the first one happening sometime around the GHB probably, and then we have the 4th and maybe final, we don't know if that's true, book at the end, and then we have an unannounced battle tome. Now, we're almost certain that that's Flesh Eater Courts, with a brand new Flesh Eater Courts range refresh that's going to come at the end of the year, which is pretty cool. So, oh yes, this is called this is called the whole range is called the Dawnbringers, but the first book is called Harbingers. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. They did say on their live stream reveal that there will be 12 or 13 factions that will get new miniatures, which is legitimately very exciting, which is very cool. And I personally am actually quite excited to read through this narrative series of books because I quite like the idea of this ongoing story. Now, they've told us at the top of this article, which is all available on Warhammer Community, of course, what is going to be inside of that. And it's going to be a series based on the Dawnbringers, or a twin-tailed crusade. So 2 crusades are setting out from the cities of Sigmar, one into the realm of fire, or Ashqui, and one into the realm of life. And then the first book, Harbingers, this book you can see here, has like 4 kind of persona dramatis, or dramatis personae, or whichever way around it is. And you're going to be reading about them and their battles inside of those regions. I assume none of them die, so you can buy the miniatures forever. Who knows? And then I imagine each one of the Dawnbringer books that comes out will feature a bunch of new miniatures, because they have said there will be miniatures for loads of different factions. And they will all have these kind of like persona dramatis, and they'll have miniatures to do with them as well. And that's legitimately very exciting. I quite like these, especially for a community, because we all get to read them as one. We get to be on this kind of narrative journey over the next few months. It's quite different to my feelings a lot of the time to do with 40k, when they do these, like this kind of cycle of story, because sometimes that feels fairly shoehorned in. Age of Sigmar still, even though it's 6 years old, is still a new setting which they're developing the storylines for. So that's going to be quite fun. Cities of Sigmar, as we know them, were kind of rehashes and like a quick narrative collaboration of putting together a bunch of miniatures that they had in this kind of homogenous storyline of the cities and the realms. The new Cities of Sigmar book we're going to see, and we'll talk about this later, is actually going to get their miniatures and their stories. So we're actually kind of going to work out what these cities are doing. And then seeing these like crusades now going to conquer the lands, and then all of the enemies that they're going to battle against is going to be quite fun. So the first book is Harbingers, and you get the story rules for up to 4 new characters, which we get to talk about here. The first one is a Nurgle character who looks very cool. Oh, they all come as part of regiments of renown as well. So the first one is called Plugoth the Miser. Now, he's obviously an updated sculpt from the Harbinger of Decay, which is one of my favourite sculpts. Of the 4, this is up there as being one of my favourites. I like the cheeky crow. I really like the kind of tomb shield on here, and the horse I think is very good. So I think he's a great little mini, my personal opinion. Next character we've got is Sir Geryon, who is a Flesh Eater Courts character. He's a Marrow Scroll Herald who are inspiring envoys, so they're messenger carriers. And as you can see here, he's carrying a bunch of bones. Obviously, Flesh Eater Court's story is that they think that they're actually humans who are normally knights or soldiers, and they're part of their heraldry and the aristocracy. And they think that they're good guys, and they're definitely not good guys. Instead, they're ghouls twisted by kind of like a pox that's ridden their mind. Then the next one is Fjorgi Grimhold the Exile. So he's a Fire Slayer. He's specifically a Grimhold Exile. And these are the last of a Magma Hold. So when the Magma Hold has been destroyed, these guys escape. They carry the flame of the Magma Hold with them. And that apparently has given them the ability to be as sassy as they can. A little interesting fact the chat pointed out is that none of the characters in Age of Sigmar, it seems, have armpit hair. Or they shave their armpit hair. That's maybe very uncomfortable looking at this miniature, but it's a miniature I really like. I think a lot of people are really disappointed because this is a new Fire Slayer's foot hero. They have loads of Fire Slayer foot heroes already. You don't need another one. Why are you releasing another one? But he's a great sculpt at the end of the day. Looks pretty cool, and it's part of an ongoing story, which I quite like. And ultimately, if you do collect Fire Slayers, you probably quite like all the foot heroes. So here's another cheeky one to throw in. And then finally, I think the winner is Braggett Big Talker, who's a rabble rouser. Most Grots are known for being garrulous gits, but this guy is a rabble rouser. And he encourages them to be... he's a bit of like a charlatan, it describes him as. They've got the gift of the gab. And this is a particularly amazing sculpt, in my opinion. He's got some flying squigs as part of his outfit, and he's also wearing a squig helm. It is not Robbo the Gobbo. Now, each one of these... Great sculpt. Now, each one of these characters comes in a set. Andrew pointed out earlier, the Nurgle one rocks you about 800 points. They're all new sculpts in the Nurgle one, though. So I don't think that's a bad one. Plus, got Blight Lords and Blight Kings. That's a pretty good box. The Flesh Eater Corpse one, I definitely wouldn't pick up if I were you. Mainly because we know that there's a new Flesh Eater Corpse book at the end of the year, and we've heard that it's a bunch of new range refreshed. So new sculpts for the ghouls. So maybe don't buy them in case they get replaced. So that would be one I maybe miss off the list. Fire Slayers is the foot hero, and then 20 models that look like the foot hero. But, that's what Fire Slayers look like. And then the Gits one is probably easily the best one. You get the Rabble Rouser, you get the Gobberpalooza, which at time of recording is a phenomenal unit inside of the game anyway, but it's also just an incredible unit. If you wanted to paint them anyway. You get some Boygrot Bounders, you get some Squig Herd, so it's literally perfect to collect. So I would definitely collect the Nurgle Fire Slayer or the Gits one. I'd skip the Flesh Eater Corpse one. Not that it's a bad box, but it's just they're old sculpts now, and they might be getting replaced. So that kind of brings us up to date with what's going to be happening in the very short term. Harbingers, 4 Regiments Renown, and a whole narrative book. 3 more books after that, 4 in total. Flesh Eater Corpse, Cities of Sigmar, and General's Handbook. And actually, that's okay. That already feels like that's a lot of content for the rest of the year off the back of a prodigious amount of Battletome releases. New General's Handbook in the summer is a new way to play. That takes us up to Christmas, where we should be getting that end narrative. Now, the one thing that we did talk about in the stream, we talked about that this might be like potentially alluding to some sort of big reveal at book 4. Because ultimately, if they're the Dawnbringers, you got to ask yourself, like, do we get to the dawn at the end, or is there going to be some sort of crushing reveal? Who knows? We talked about maybe we would see Grungy return. I'd like to know what everyone if you're watching this as a YouTube video or if you're listening to this back as a podcast, what you think. So do leave it in the comments and then let us know. So the next thing that we saw has got me literally frothy, very excited. Some of the new Cities of Sigmar miniatures are on release. Don't forget, Cities of Sigmar out in the summer, and it is looking great. We have got all these new Cavalier sculpts. As you can see, very heavily armored, very detailed miniatures. They look absolutely stunning, in my personal opinion. They're very baroque. They're very over the top. I think there's a really good conversation that people have been having a lot recently, especially when you're army painting versus miniature painting. You want to get an army on the tabletop as fast as possible. The designers have clearly made the decision that that is not what you're going to do with these units. They've given them lots of detail, lots of barding. Although I would argue you have a lot of surface area, but a lot of that is the same material. And if you're doing trim for the Chaos stuff, which has also been a fairly new release, that's going to be more time consuming than doing this, in my opinion. The paint jobs are great and the sculpts are great, so congratulations to both of the artists. I quite like the heavy metal armor that you can see on the barding going over the top. It's pretty cool, an obvious design choice. Like it's way severe, which is very cool. Obviously, shout out to the horse that's tripping over a snail on the captain guy, which is fun. We do not see. I don't think we see a musician in here. So we have a banner person. We have obviously the leader slash captain. I think this is either one of these sculpts. There's a very funny "screw you, the old world" line in here. Here you see some of the old world knights, and I remember buying these and thinking that they were very cool. Pretty harrowing looking at them now versus these new sculpts. However, you can see in the article they've written, compared to their predecessors from the world that was, these cavaliers are more baroque, resplendent with banners, crested helmets, and unusual details, such as the decorative high-rise cantors. So I think that was a little bit of a dig at the old world, especially as they've announced the re-release of the old Bretonnian Knights. So, some great minis here. Really fun to see. Absolutely love it. Yeah, very cool. And Cities of Sigmar is looking very hot. I'd love to know if anyone is thinking about collecting them. Looking at the timeline, you can see that Book 2 has got like an Uruk face on it. And that makes sense because one of the miniatures that they showcased was a Gore grunter. Well, sorry, no. It's a hero version, the More grunter. Okay, so this is a big hog. Now, this is kind of interesting in that it feels like it's got a bit of dichotomy to it. It's obviously an amazing sculpt. It's something the community has wanted for a long time. A hero on a Gore grunter, because Gore grunters are used loads in Age of Sigmar. They're very popular. I think Gore grunters and brutes are used a lot, and you tend to see Ardboys not used as much, and they are very old sculpts from the world that was. So getting the Gore grunters, which are kind of the updated versions, having having their own hero is super cool. And the Games Workshop have just thrown the baby out with the bathwater on this one, and then they've made it so that it in some way interacts with Ardboys, because on the sculpt you can see some Ardboys are carrying along with it. So a single More grunter can smash through massed infantry like a boar in a china shop, paving the way for a brutal Ardboys charge. So maybe it buffs Ardboys in some ways. We don't know. Could it be an Ardboy transport? That's cool. Is it going to work the same way as a chariot and do loads of damage, and then you can deep strike some Ardboys with it because it's brought it along? Who knows? That's like very fun. I'm not really sure. But either way, the sculpt is very legit, which you love to see. And as you can see here, there's some really great art with it as well. Very great art. Again, it's just another cool miniature, but it's nice to know that you're going to be getting some updates and also potentially maybe a new way to play your Ironjawz army, which has become fairly stale over the past, since the book was released, because it doesn't have a particularly big roster. Also means if they have gone back to the drawing board and started designing new Ironjawz models, that does mean that we're potentially going to get a bit of, not a range refresh, but some additional models for the range, which, as an Ironjawz fan, I'm actually really excited about. I think that's very cool. I'd love to see it. And that model is stupendous. I think everyone is in love with the pig. I think this has been a bit of a barnstorm. I think everyone is a huge fan. So another great mini, another great release coming up. That'll be in the summer. Looks very cool. There is some stories that there's multi ways to build this. I think that got talked about in the preview. There's a version where it's got a hero version, and then maybe there's just other versions that are non-hero versions that can just be used as units running around, which is very cool. I like that idea as well. I like super, maybe like a 3-up save, heavily armored, could take loads of damage, works like a chariot. Awesome sculpt. Love it. Absolutely great. The last bit of Age of Sigmar news is another Warcry box. We have Flesh Eater Courts against some new Stormcast Eternals. And let's look at the minis inside. Now, don't forget, you can always use these Warcry sets in your Age of Sigmar games. They always get rules updated. Some of them are very good, like the Rotmire Creed. Some of them aren't as good. It really depends. But they are always great sculpts if you want to pick up a box. And there's a bunch of Stormcast in here. They look very cool. I especially like this guy with his little skull handbag. That's quite cute. The axe lady, I'm a big fan of. I think that's quite fun. So a nice little like Stormcast set, especially if you wanted to like, maybe you were thinking about collecting Stormcast, you want to try out a paint scheme. Maybe it's not the most cost efficient way of doing it, but Warcry is a really good, fun, simple game. My friend Adam taught me how to play it. A couple of months ago, we had our first few games. I picked it up in like 2 games. You definitely could play it. It's super easy mode gaming. There's loads of variation. There's a good story behind it. Yeah, pretty good. The other version is the Flesh Eater Courts, or the other Warcry band in there is a Flesh Eater Courts band, and they look very fun. Very, very fun. And this kind of alludes to, in my personal opinion, the update of the Flesh Eater Courts range later in the year in the winter box. You got a very cool leader there with a very fun axe, and that axe is very much like the same as the axe that you see in the Soulblight Gravelords, like Wolfenkhan kind of Curse City stuff. It's literally, I think it might even be an identical axe to the Watchmaster, which is quite cool. I really like it a lot. Yeah, but then we do have the Gorillas. Thank you to Sorry again in the chat. As you can see here. So these are... So Flesh Eater Courts are people who have fallen to a delusion and have become ghouls, but they think that they're knightly and good. I don't know how Gorillas fit in, but they do. They're here. They're real. They've got little tootsies if you want to paint them in really nice. They've got big haunchy shoulders, and they're covered in bones. I don't know what to do with this. I don't know how to feel about this. I need comments to tell me what you think about them, but I'm out. And then finally, there's just a bunch of other little cool ghoul stuff for this Warcry set. And again, I think Warcry is, and skirmish games themselves are very, very effective for new players and also players that are time poor. You get a bunch of miniatures, which are and an achievable amount of miniatures to paint. Like 10 minis. You get to spend the time making them look really nice, which is really cool. And then you get to play a game that doesn't take more than an hour, and it's not super complicated to pick up, and you'll have a good time. I think Warcry is particularly good for that, and it's good to see this Games Workshop continue to support that, because ultimately I think that that's actually quite cool to do so. So there you go. And that's it. That's kind of everything from the fest. And Age of Sigmar, I think, and I've said this before, past couple of weeks, in a great place. There's loads of new books. Some of them are very strong, sure, like KO and New Seraphon. But it's a bit of a wild west of gaming at the moment. All sorts of armies out there doing all sorts of things. If you are playing in tournaments, loads of stuff to read, pick up and paint and learn and play. So an electric game state, an electric kind of like narrative universe, and loads of stuff to do, which is cool and exciting. Loads of new minis coming out. A roadmap till the end of the year on a narrative campaign is, in my opinion, very exciting. I'm actually really excited about that. So I'm happy with that. Those are books I am going to pick up because they're kind of what I want from Games Workshop. I want a book with a bunch of story in, which doesn't have lots of rules in it. It's not like 20-30% rules. It's like a couple of rules at the end is fine, but I'm excited to find out who these new characters are in the setting and then explore that. So I'm looking forward to that. All the minis look great. The Cities of Sigmar stuff looks magnificent in my opinion. I think that looks really great. So yeah, I think overall, if I was an Age of Sigmar fan, I'd be quite happy with the weekend. Sure, we're not necessarily getting like a whole range refresh. Well, we are. We're getting Cities of Sigmar and Flesh Eater Courts in the year. I think it's good. So I'm happy. I'm happy. I want to know what you all think, so do let me know. But thanks for listening. Please do like and subscribe. And if you want to, I have a Patreon. Support the Patreon. Helps me make more content. Thank you very much.